Happy Tuesday, Care Bears, Pod Killers, and every capsular in between. Here's your bite-sized weekly dose of New Eden news, tips, and information. I would also like to welcome our newest news team member, Rambo.
Hello, hello.
You'll be hearing more from him in the upcoming weeks, so give him a nice 07 in local if you see him in the inky black. First up, another small increase for Plex brings pricing up about 5% from last week to $418K. SHH has not made friends out in the black. Honk, along with about 24 allies, set on a SHH station in RG9 TAC 7U. SHH defended with approximately 280 pilots versus 700, according to wildly varying reports. The station was destroyed in the end, with Honk's coalition achieving their objective and SHH declaring that they won the ISK Efficiency war and killed more ships while outmanned. Numbers are hazy with all the propaganda surrounding the fight, but decide for yourself whether achieving your station killing objective or killing more ships should count as victory.
Lastly, somebody is trying to sell a probe covert ops in Jeddah for a whopping $1.5 billion. Good luck with that. By now, you've known me as Rambo. I'm a new pilot to Eve Echoes, and I really enjoy the game, and thank you for having me on the show.
No, thank you for being here. All right, this week's Corp ad is once again SAC, S-A-C, Secret Alt Corp. They are not a democracy. They have no alliance or coalition mates. They do not accept newbies, only experienced combat pilots. They have no SRP or buyback program. Do whatever for ISK, just join fights. Discord or GTFO. US Eastern Standard Time, English 18 and up. The link to SAC Discord is in the description. If you want to hear your ads for your corp or alliance, send them to us. We have no bounty this week. If you would like to see this podcast maybe host its own bounty board for you to submit bounties to and collect from, let us know as well. This week's tip, ISK Efficiency. It's something that should always be on your mind, whatever activity you're doing. What is your travel time worth? Would selling mission tickets and moving on generate more ISK per hour overall than if you ran those missions yourself? If your mining and reprocessing skills aren't as good as your market skills, would you be better off placing buy orders for the minerals you need instead of mining them yourself? It's not just about total profit, it's the time spent for that profit, and the ISK you are willing to risk in the process. Low-sec mining, for instance, is not ISK efficient if you get your retriever destroyed in the process. So come up with a plan, and you'll not just be more profitable, you'll be using more of your playtime enjoying what you're doing instead of just traveling.
Always remember, once you've made that ISK, make sure you carefully read the contracts and don't fall victim to obvious scams. For this week's Kill Mail, shout out to the Gate Guns clapping pirates in low sec. Werner Herzog recently lost a juicy 2.8 billion Phantasm lost mail. Autopilot is not your friend, my friend.
Not anywhere, other than maybe high sec. All right, this week we are speaking with Shaq about his experience as a very predatory fleet commander. How are you doing, Shaq?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you doing? It's good to be here.
More of a hunter type.
Yeah, I'm definitely more of a fan on picking those uneven fights and frustrating and winding people up. I suppose some people might call me a bit of a salt miner.
Nice. Did you used to play EVE Online, or is this your first EVE game?
So I tried getting into it when I was a kid, but turned up too late to the point that it was so complex, and I just didn't have the time to pick it up and learn it properly. So then when I found out they're obviously bringing out Eve Echoes and it was more simplified, starting fresh, I was there like, I think I might get on that.
Did you set out immediately for PvP, or did you go any mining or ratting or mission running or anything else?
I think I probably started out just doing some basic ratting to figure it out, found a corp, and then once actually I'd made enough ISK to kit out a bomber, at that point the majority of my time went towards PvP.
So pretty much at first taste, you decided PvP was the way to go?
Oh, definitely. Don't get me wrong. There's always that point of me that's like I'd love to fly around in a 2 billion ISK ship. But then there's the other point of me that's just like, yeah, but you're just grinding the same thing. People are where you can find the challenge and also the complete humor of when people just don't have a clue what they're doing.
Got any good examples of that?
Funnest ones with bombing is, so obviously I started out solo on my own bombing. And there's a sector right next to our area that I'd regularly go into and raid. And I think it took them about 2 weeks to figure out how to defend against me as a bomber in my own, which I found really quite funny because, other sectors, they pretty much figured out straight away. Just stick a ship in the belt with the miners, problem solved. But no, this one sector, they would just keep bouncing them around. So you just wait for them to warp off, kill one cloak, and it took them about 2 weeks to figure out what the hell they're doing. And they eventually stopped me and I was like, oh, okay, I need more people. So I started recruiting corp members into bombers who I think had probably been laughing for a while at the amount of killmails I was just posting in the corp chat every day. And again, I think it was just the fact that you could go in there with 4 bombers and you wouldn't even have to leave the system to kill them. You could spend 2 hours just sat in their system, waiting, watching, looking at how they would move their defense fleet rounds, how to start with. They wouldn't even have cohesion, so literally you just have ships jumping in and out of belts. But every single person, for the most part, did the same system or route of how they jump through them. So you could just sit, watch maybe 5 minutes, and you'd be able to spot the gaps where one's just warped out. You've got 2 minutes till the next one warps in. Oh, okay, I'll take that retriever, next jump.
How many of those systems have those bots that they don't acknowledge that you're in the system? So when they leave their base or their station and they come out to a mining belt, they'll just land at the belt. You could be cloaked, but as soon as you lock them, that's when they all of a sudden say like, oh crap, there's somebody here, and then they'll leave. How many of those people do you think you get?
A lot. Because in this system, they didn't pay attention. They wouldn't even look at local to see if they had people coming in. And yeah, no, this took me 3 weeks of continuously targeting one corporation in their home system for them to eventually start calling me out. So as soon as I stepped into that, not just the system, but that sector, everywhere I went in local, as soon as I turned up, Shaq's here.
They'll call you out.
Yeah, they would literally call me out, and it didn't change a thing. Half the time, for example, if you've gone to a system and you've got 4 miners and you know they're decent ones because they've evaded you before, you don't jump to the belt. You jump to the gate that you know they're going to. You wait for them to come, you jump through with them, and you catch them on the other side. So even when they do that, you can adapt your tactics. Yeah, we had a competition after I'd got a load of people into the bombing to the first person to reach 100 kill marks in their ship. I like being able to turn around to people in the sector and be like, "Hi, I'm back. I've now killed 2 billion of your ships. Do you want to pay me yet, or shall I just keep coming back?" It's the entertainment of them getting so frustrated that 20 players will throw everything at me for a good hour or two and get nothing for it. And in between that time, I'll probably still take another 500 million to 1 billion ISK of ships from them.
Do they ever pay you to leave?
I've had individual people, corporations generally seem to have too, as soon as you put it in a local sense, corporations seem to have too much pride. It's like when they're all there in front of each other, they can't have the ego of paying someone off. I find it hilarious because I've had people where I've been like, just give me 100 million and I'll go away. They lost 2.5 billion, 3 billion worth of ships, mining ships and transports in 2 weeks. Did they pay me? No, just kept going. It would have been so much easier for them. I think the part of why I laugh at is I'm just like, you brought it on yourself. I gave you an option at the start, and I gave you the option every day I've come back, and you're just stubborn.
They may have assumed that it would not have actually kept you from coming back.
Yeah, they could have assumed that, but I'm a man of my words. If someone, and there have been people in these systems that have paid me, and I've put them blue, and I will leave them alone. But at the same point, I could understand why they don't trust me. I might have stolen lots of money's worth of mining equipment.
You said that you got together like a bomber fleet from the corporation. Did you have to train those people to kind of do the same tactics as you to make that fleet more profitable?
Took a couple of guys out, and I'd explain to them the basics of operating a stealth bomber. You know, your 2K decloak, all the basics you want to know, so you don't have that stupid mistake that throws away your 50 million to what's now 100 million ship. But I was still at that point. I had to figure out because it's a lot moving from an individual bomber to actually coordinating people all coming into an area and scouting effectively, so that you can scout as much of the system as quickly while also being able to respond quickly to the scouts doing it. So the first maybe 3 or 4 missions, it changed. Every time we went out, I'd be trying something new and we'd have a look at something else. And there was open cohesion. So, you know, if anyone had an idea, we'd pop it out there and we'd try it. And I think after about 4 or 5 goes, I refined it down to what I found was the most effective tactic of dispersing your scouts while having a main unit ready to respond, and developing a system that moved from struggling to get 3 people onto a target in the belt without 1 decloaking to getting 10 to 13 bombers in location on a belt which was packed.
Have you had that situation come up where you had 13 bombers come into a belt that's just loaded with retrievers and ventures?
Got into a belt with 5 retrievers and a load of ventures. This is a funny story because this was the day that they actually managed to adapt and try a new tactic, which caught me off surprise. So they managed to get one of us, which was a first in terms of actual large fleet engagements. There's a lot less risk when there's more of you because you're able to alpha a target and disappear. We're in this belt. We'd all got into range, these 5 retrievers around them. Decloak, took one, and took the second one, and instantly walked out. But actually, for the first time, these guys had realised that they knew we were in the system. They didn't know which belt we were at. So they'd finally figured out, if I'm responding to bombers at belts, maybe I want to turn up in something quick, something that's going to get me there quickly. So they put together a fleet of maybe 14 Condors and Slashers. They just managed to catch one of the bombers before we walked out. You know, if we're following the tactic we normally follow, which is 1 kill, get out, 1 kill, get out. Just because why? As much as there's that kind of sense of glory of, yeah, we can just pull apart a mining belt, it's a hell of a risk. You're talking about, for most of the people in the squad, the 50 to 100 million to get the bomber wasn't just a small figure. That was a portion of playtime for them to get there. So you generally go with the line, you know, if you live to fight again, you can get another kill. So I've always taught my guys that I would rather you drop a kill if you're about to get screwed, and we come back for it again later at our own choice. It's about picking that fight and not being greedy. Because as much as it is entertaining sometimes, and you get a bit caught up in it, most of the time it always pays off to be reserved, to pick your fights, to literally pick people apart piece by piece. It's a good way to frustrate them as well, because once you're doing it on such a controlled manner, it becomes very hard to actually do anything about it.
Do you find the solo hunting or the gang bombing more easy or enjoyable?
They've both got that aspect. So the single bombing, I find at points gives me a bit more of a thrill, because if I'm trying to take out a retriever, like, you're really pushing it with the time frame. Retrievers don't exactly die quickly. So if you're going for something like a retriever, it can definitely get your heart going, because you're there thinking, have they managed to get it into the local chat yet, or into their court chat, and is someone on the way? So you're already aligning, ready to jump, just intensely staring at this phone screen. And then there's other times with the bomber fleet, it's different, because at that point, I'm not so much worried about my ship. I know that there's 10 of us, any retriever or transport or that we're going to tackle. Or occasionally, if there's a single condor, we'll tackle it just for the lol. With that one, it's can be as intense, because at the same point I've got on my head, shit, I need to get every single one of these people out alive, because you feel responsible for the fact that they're entrusting you to make decisions, putting their valuable ships at risk. Because we'll normally, often, if we don't want to be discreet, we'll just go and ruin people with 2 million frigates. We'll take out a squad of 2 million frigates, and so what? A 20 million cost fleet, and we can easily sink retrievers, stabbers, vexers, just pick off anything we find. But once you're in bombers, it's a bit more about playing with tactics. It's the logistics of it. It's the impact you can have on a war or a disagreement between two alliances. Because a big part of Eve is the economy. Like, if you can keep taking ships off them and losing nothing, your corp's going to come out on the top in the slog that is a war of attrition.
ISK efficiency is important.
Yeah, exactly. I think the one thing I've always proud myself for being proud of with the bombers is that up to this day, I've had 3 bombers lost, and we've taken over 10 billion ISK in ships.
Wow.
I had a new player get into my fleets without having a training session. That was an honest mistake on my part. His name was very similar to another pilot that flew with us. And he hadn't, therefore, got the briefing and didn't know, for example, one of the golden rules is once you've got your kill, you bounce, and then we'll meet up and organise once you're out. And we got the kill, and he sat there, and a fleet come in and grab him. And it was just like, oh my God. So I slapped myself for that one. I was with one other fleet mate, and there was 2 retrievers in a belt with a rupture and a CNI on belt guarding them. It was a corporation that I've been, should we say, trolling for a while, just by sinking their miners. And we're feeling slightly arrogant about it, should I say. So we popped the retriever, and unluckily, my wingmate just got blown up before he got into warp. But at the end of the day, we were taking a stupid risk trying to sink a retriever with 2 bombers under guard in one strike.
But you still killed it.
Yeah, we had a laugh about the fact that we actually sank it, and we also learned some lessons about the distance a hurricane can hit on. Weren't quite expecting that when we were running with afterburners.
Hurricanes are monsters.
Well, why not just go for the cane? That's a $400 million kill mail. At least, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, well, it depends on whether you think it's going to be clear. Quite often, when I've been playing with defence fleet, in the areas where they've got defence fleets, they also have other roaming ones. So it's not like you get a clear shot at them. You wouldn't be able to just stay there and keep unloading, which you might win the race against them if they didn't have reinforcements arriving.
You said you had a contest among your people for first person to 100 kills, get the prize. Was that effective in getting people more into the PvP spirit?
I definitely think it helped pull people in. I think the other part was because of that competition, I ended up sharing, obviously, 100 killmails in Corp chat, as did the other bombers who didn't quite get to 100 at the time. They were obviously posting all of their killmail in the Corp chat. So throughout the day, it would just be killmails all through dispersed through the Corp chat, which became kind of one of the vocal joking points for a fair while. And I think, yeah, that's definitely got more people into it and finding it funny. I mean, it made people realise the enjoyment in some sense from salt farming certain areas. And in other sense, the seeing effectiveness. I think a lot of people had tried PvP and it didn't go well, and they didn't know how to start or where to. They felt every time they started, it just didn't go well. And I think it's probably for some people helped build a confidence of being like, actually, yeah, I can go out there and pick on people and not have it go horribly wrong.
I think that's maybe the number one barrier for a lot of people, just that lack of confidence.
Is the lack of confidence and the lack of the experience. If they've never experienced a PvP fleet such as like that, it's good to have somebody say, "Hey, I'm going to take the lead. Let's just go out. We'll test some tactics and we'll have some fun, get some kills. You're pretty much guaranteed to get a kill, right? So, get some experience that way, and it's definitely a good boost to your confidence. And then eventually someday they can go out and solo bomb themselves even.
Bombers are definitely they're not as expensive as your bigger ships, but they're more than your frigates and your destroyers. But a brilliant one for teaching people basic principles and just having a laugh and doing it cheaply is you can fit a Condor to, well, our Corp, for example, it might be a bit more if you don't have a Corp that can make a system work. But we produce Condor 2s and Interceptors for 2 mil a pop. 2 mil will give you a ship that if you have 10 of them and a okay fleet commander, you can be, I was crap when I started, but literally just practice and go out with something cheap. So in total, our fleet would cost 20 million. None of us would care if we got blown up. So we're willing to have a laugh, try things, learn things, and actually get into it. I think some of the biggest problem is everyone goes, I want the biggest, most powerful ship to go into PvP so I can actually do well. Sod that, get something cheap, and just throw them away a couple of times and learn your lessons.
Yeah, and that goes into other aspects of PvP, whether that's attacking a base or defending a Stargate, or just going out and roaming belts.
With frigates, a lot of people would probably instantly assume what you can do with frigates. Jump them all in on someone and just afterburn round them and speed tank and shoot them. But potentially, actually, they're running rapids and you're not going to be able to speed tank them. Okay, to have someone drop a crate 100 kilometers away and literally have your guys spread out in a different time frame of jumping, bouncing to and from each other, either the crate or the enemy, locking, firing around, bouncing out. And you can literally sit there and tackle a larger ship indefinitely because they're not going to be able to lock you before you go in, shoot them and bounce again. So you basically just waste all of their time where they're trying to lock people while you're still getting off rounds. There's always a way to adapt and think to take on a challenge to a degree.
I do have one last question for you. I'm sure you get a lot of salt. Did you get any favorite hate mail?
I think most of the salt I've had is in local. Like there is one system I go into, and I shit you not, the local channel just lights up. It's like I'm in Jita. For the first 2 minutes, it's just he's here, and then potentially listing off whoever's come with me, and then it just turns into some of the like the funniest shit in the world. Show people the respect you want to be shown, but at the same point, I find it hilarious when people try to insult me because it's just like water off a duck's back. In part, the more they resist me, the more like aggro they get, the more insulting they get, the more it incentivizes me to just stay there. The more you get salty, the more I'm entertained by this. Like, it's boring when you go somewhere and they don't react at all, and you just get a couple of kills and they'll just stop in the station and nothing happens.
That is absolutely beautiful. I love it when people rage in local chat.
I like the ones where they will call you out, say, hey, this guy's in the system, and then all of a sudden you post the kill mail of them in local chat.
Done that a couple of times. I had one guy who was calling me out, and they put together a retriever trap. So literally they kitted out 3 retrievers with all the gear you'd probably want to try and take out a bomber. And we still managed to uncloak, kill the main guy calling us out, cloak and disappear, and then post his kill mail. And he was, I imagine from what was coming across the text messages, frothing at the mouth on the other side.
All right, Jack. It's been more than a pleasure talking to you. It's been very insightful.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, Shaq. Thanks for doing this for us.
Yeah, no worries.
Our frequent guest and friend of the show, Skyray of Pirate's Guide to the Galaxy, which will be linked in the show notes, of course, is now going to be providing us with a new fit of the week, starting right about now.
This week, I'll be taking a look at the Minmatar stealth bomber, the Hound. Stealth bombers are unique in that they are the only ships in the game that can attack immediately after decloaking. Combined with the Hound's high speed and the recently improved DPS of torpedoes, this ship is a formidable weapon in low and nullsec. In addition, it is a relatively cheap ship to buy and fit, and can punch far above its weight. I'll start this fit off with the high slots. We'll go with 3 Caldari Navy medium torpedo launchers. Normally I avoid faction fittings, but these are currently selling for a few $100,000 each, so they are well worth the added cost. Headed to the mid slots, we are going to fit 2 Mark 7 warp scramblers. Warp scramblers are perfect for stealth bombers. Your cloaking device allows you to get into point-blank range before you engage, and the added warp scramble strength helps keep your targets from getting away. Finally, the fact that they can shut off opponents' micro-warp drives means that we only need an afterburner to keep our targets from getting away. The low slots are pretty simple. Obviously, we'll be using a covert ops cloaking device since that's the whole point of this ship. We will add a small afterburner. Whatever version is cheap and available is fine. Finally, we will throw in the best small shield extender we can afford and fit. To close out the fit, let's talk about rigs. It's tempting to throw a warhead calefaction catalyst or loading bay accelerators to boost our fitting screen DPS. Resist that urge. Instead, fit 2 Tech 2 warhead rigger catalysts. These rigs lower the explosive radius of our torpedoes, which will do a lot to increase our real DPS against cruisers and industrial ships, which are our primary targets for stealth bombers. If you can afford it, add in a couple auxiliary thrusters to boost your speed. If not, don't worry, you'll be fast enough to deal with most targets. Now that we have this baby built, let's talk about how to fly it. The key to this ship is target selection. That covert ops cloaking device lets you pick your battles. Skulk from system to system, looking for unprotected targets and ambush to your heart's content. You should be able to take out any industrial ship as well as most turret-fitted cruisers with ease. Avoid targets like battle cruisers that are too tough and missile ships which are immune to your speed tanking. Obviously, don't mess with any faction frigate or cruisers. Those are just way out of your league. Once you enter a system, start by checking out the belts, then check the anomalies. As you warp to each location, warp to 10 kilometers, or 20 or 30 to minimize your risk of colliding with a target and losing your cloak. Once you find a worthy target, tell your ship to approach at full speed. Once you get within 5 kilometers, decloak, turn on your afterburner, lock the ship, and activate your warp scramblers and weapons. As you lock, you will bump their ship, which should keep them from warping before you finish locking. After you bump, set your ship to orbit at 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers, 5 kilometers. With luck, you'll soon be sailing away with your stuff in your cargo hold, ready to take on the next target. Finally, know that you're going to lose these. They are glass cannons. Fortunately, they're relatively cheap. Fly a story mission or two and you can replace it easily. That makes the Hound a fantastic ship for beginners to learn the basics of PvP. If you have some friends, this Hound pairs well with other stealth bombers or with Covert Ops cruisers like the Bellicose. If you enjoy this fitting, please consider visiting the Pirate's Guide to the Galaxy at pirates/guide.com to see more fits and get the latest tips to improve your PvP performance in EVE Echoes.
All right, that about does it for this week. For a deep dive of the week's most important stories and the week in review, as always, check out EVE Echoes Weekly News Update on YouTube at Echoes from the Front, which is linked in the show notes.
Also, if you want to hear your kill mails, bounties, corp or alliance ads, or even your own voice as a guest of the week, email us at emailtheslap@gmail.com.
If you've enjoyed the podcast, consider telling the people you fly with about it. If you're also extra special awesome, you could leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. You would warm this pirate's cold, dead heart. Alright guys, fly dangerous.
Fly safe, people.